Hello and welcome to another episode in this beginner's Python course. In this episode, we'll be looking at ways to alter the flow of our program using break, continue, and pass. Here we have four variables. We've got cars batch, which is equal to 4. We have the production line, which is equal to a list of strings, materials, construction, electronics, and paint. We have a quality gate, which is equal to 0.7, which is a floating point. And we have a production line QA, or quality assurance. And that's equal to two-dimensional array. This is equal to a car. Car 1, car 2, car 3, car 4. And each value is equal to each phase in the production line. Our goal is to only release cars to the customer if it passes the quality assurance process. And what that means is if we fail to construct the car correctly, that means our QA value is going to be lower than, say, if it was to succeed. In this case, we've got the first vehicle, which achieved a 1, which is a pass for materials, but it only received a 0.2 for construction. And that is less. 0.2 is less than our quality gate of 0.7. Therefore, the car failed to pass quality assurance within the construction phase. And subsequently, we do not want the car to proceed onto electronics or paint. And we merely want to just take the car out of the production line and let the user know that this has happened. In cases where we have achieved 1 across the board, well, we can release the car, we can sell it to the customer, right? And finally, if we are equal to 0.7, we simply want to double check. We just want to make sure the car is okay with a second quality check. I hope that made sense. There are 4 variables. Let's begin by looping over our car batch. So for every car in range of our cars batch, get and store in a variable the values achieved by quality assurance. So car phases is equal to our production line QA and car, because we want it specifically for the car. So our first loop, we will be asking for this, and we would just want to store that. Why? Because we want to perform some checks on those values, right? Next, we want to use another for loop to iterate over each car phase. So for phase in range of the length of the production line, because our production line is 4. Just for demonstration purposes, let's just print car phases and phase. We want to just print that out. So you can see we've got all the values. It's not going to mean anything to us right now, but we have all the values. We want to put some checks in here. If the car phases, and we want to give it the phase index because we want the value, it's less than our quality gate, well, we just want to print that the car has failed QA, right? And we want to remove it from production. So we can say print F double quotes. We want to say car ID. We'll say car has failed QA. And we want to say which phase in the production line it's failed. So in this case, we will say production line and our current phase. We can say with value car phases phase, because we want the value. Then we just say remove from production. Okay, and we can run this. And there we can see only one car has failed production, and that's the first car. Hence why we've only received the print statement once. So car ID 0, which is the first car, has failed QA in construction with the value 0.2, removed from production. Okay, great. Well, if we actually investigate this further, we want to print car phases phase. We're going to see that the car printing removed from production, we're continuing on in the process, which is not great because we are working on a car that's failed a quality check. There's no point, right? So this is where the break statement comes in, or the break keyword. If we say here we want a break, because there's no point continuing on this car. If, however, the car phases, current phase, let's say it is equal to our quality gate, then we can use the print function again, f double quote. We want to say car ID needs secondary checks after QA in, we want to say the production line, current phase with value car phases phase. But we want to continue, right, to the next phase. And the way we say that is our production line, our current phase, plus, within the square brackets, +1. And what this will do is print the value of the next phase from our current phase. So if you're at construction, +1, it will print electronics. So if we run this, there we go, we can see that car ID 3 needs a secondary check after QA in electronics. So it's failed in electronics, or it's not necessarily failed, but it hasn't passed. It kind of needs a second check within electronics with value 0.7, which is the case, right? Because we have 0.7 here. Continue to paint. Okay, continue to paint. So it's going to continue on in the process. And the way we would do that programmatically is by saying continue. I hope this is making sense so far. Of course, if there's any questions, just post them down in the comment section down below. The final check we will have is if the car phases, again, the current phase, if it's greater than our quality gate, well, that's great, right? Because that means the car has passed. We can say print f double quote car ID car passed QA in. Okay. And what we should see is a lot of them pass. So car ID 1 has managed to make it all the way through, and 2. So what we can do here is pass, because we may want to add extra code to the bottom here. Let's just show that when the car has reached its final stage, then it's either ready for its final check. So in this case, it will be when it's equal to the quality gate. It needs to go to get it checked a second time, or it's ready for its customer. So let's add the logic for that. So we can say, so if the current phase is equal to the length of the production line minus 1, because we start at 0, we want to make sure that we're at the end of the, or at the 4th production phase. We can print, we can say car ID is ready for customer. And if we run this, we can see that when we get to the end, which is after paint, they're ready for the customer. But there's a problem, right? Because this car ID 3, we've said continue to paint, and it's gone to paint, it's passed the QA in paint, but it's also said it's ready for customer, right? And that's not what we want. We want to put it for secondary checks because that's what we said. So we will need to add another condition here. So we can say, before we do that, we may need to store a variable. So here we can say second check required is equal to 1, right? And that way we can keep an eye on it. We can default it as 0. And then we can say here, if the second check is required, okay, we can print F double quotes car ID car ready for final checks by QA. Because we don't know the outcome of those final checks, we don't want to give it to the customer, which means we do not want to print this. So what we can say is continue. And we can just move on to the next car. So if I run this, there we go. We can straight away see that car ID 3 went to paint, it passed at paint, but it's ready for its checks by QA for a second time. Whereas if we go to car ID 2, which had nothing wrong with it whatsoever, we can see that it's gone straight to its customer after it's passed all the QA elements. I really do hope this video has been useful. For those new to my channel, please like and subscribe for more content like this. See you in the next one.